The hidden genius of igloos. A journey into Arctic ingenuity. Picture this. A vast frozen wilderness stretching endlessly under a sky so clear it feels like you could touch the stars. The wind howls, carrying tiny shards of ice that sting your face. The temperature? A bone-chilling 30-degree, the kind of cold that makes your breath freeze in mid-air. Now imagine building a warm, cozy shelter in this unforgiving landscape. Not with bricks, not with wood, but with nothing more than the snow beneath your feet. Welcome to the world of the igloo, a structure so brilliant, so misunderstood, that it's time we gave it the respect it deserves. When most of us think of igloos, we conjure up cartoonish images of domed snow huts, maybe with a cheerful Inuit family inside, sipping hot drinks while polar bears tap politely at the door. It's a charming picture, but it's about as accurate as thinking the Arctic is just a giant skating rink. Igloos weren't fluffy winter cottages or year-round homes. They were the ultimate survival tool, a testament to the ingenuity of the Inuit people who turned one of nature's harshest elements, snow, into a warm, practical, and downright clever place to rest. So, grab a metaphorical parka, because we're diving deep into the surprising world of igloos and uncovering the brilliance behind these snow-crafted marvels. Let's start by debunking the biggest myth. Igloos were not the Inuits' full-time homes. If you're imagining a snowy suburb with igloo cul-de-sacs and caribou-drawn sleighs parked out front, think again. The Inuit were a semi-nomadic people, moving with the seasons to follow food sources like caribou, seals, and fish. During the long Arctic winters when hunters ventured far from their main camps to track game, they needed shelter that could be built quickly, anywhere, with whatever was at hand. Enter the igloo, a temporary refuge that was as practical as it was ingenious. These snow shelters were designed for specific moments: a night's rest during a hunt, a week-long base for a seal hunting expedition, or a safe haven when a sudden storm rolled in. They weren't meant to last forever. In fact, their impermanence was part of their charm. Unlike modern houses that demand mortgages and endless repairs, an igloo could melt away in spring, leaving no trace and no cleanup required. For the rest of the year, Inuit families often lived in more permanent dwellings made of whalebone, driftwood, sod, or animal hides, structures that could withstand the shifting seasons. Igloos, though, were the Arctic's answer to a pop-up tent, except instead of flimsy nylon, they were built from nature's own building blocks. What makes igloos so remarkable is how perfectly they fit their purpose. Imagine you're an Inuit hunter, miles from home, carrying only a knife and your knowledge of the land. You don't have a truck full of lumber or a hardware store nearby, but you've got snow, lots of it. With nothing more than a blade and some skill, you could carve out a shelter that would keep you warm and safe. It's the ultimate lightweight travel hack. No need to haul materials across the tundra. The Arctic provided everything. Early Arctic explorers from Greenland to Alaska marveled at how Inuit communities across the region had mastered this craft, each group tweaking the design to suit local snow conditions or hunting needs. It's like how every family has their own secret recipe for soup, except this recipe kept you alive in a blizzard. The speed of igloo construction is nothing short of jaw-dropping. In our world, building anything takes time. Assembling a flat pack bookshelf can feel like a day-long saga, complete with missing screws and existential crises. But an experienced Inuit builder? They could whip up a basic igloo in as little as 30 minutes. That's faster than it takes to get a pizza delivered in most cities. A standard shelter for 3 people might take 40 minutes tops. To put that in perspective, you could build an igloo, take a nap inside, and still have time to scroll through your phone before dinner. If phones existed in the Arctic back then, of course. How did they do it? It all started with the snow. Not just any snow would do. Fluffy, fresh powder might be great for snowball fights, but for igloos you needed the good stuff. Wind-packed snow, compressed by Arctic gusts into a dense, sturdy material. Builders would probe the ground with a knife or stick, listening for that telltale hollow sound that signaled the perfect consistency. Too soft, and the blocks would crumble. Too hard, and they'd be impossible to cut. It was like Goldilocks, choosing her porridge, except instead of breakfast, they were crafting a house. Once the right snow was found, the builder would slice it into blocks, roughly 2 feet long, 1.5 feet high, and 8 inches thick. These weren't random chunks hacked out in a hurry. Precision mattered. The blocks had to fit together, like pieces of a 3D puzzle. Working in a spiral pattern, the builder would stack them, angling each block slightly inward to form the iconic dome shape. No scaffolding, no blueprints, no YouTube tutorials, just pure skill, passed down through generations. If 2 people teamed up, one cutting blocks and the other placing them, the process was even faster. It's the kind of teamwork that makes you wish your group projects in school had gone this smoothly. But the real magic of an igloo wasn't just that it could be built quickly. It was what happened once you stepped inside. Outside, the Arctic might be a frozen nightmare, with winds that could knock you over and temperatures that laughed at your layers of clothing. Inside an igloo, though, it was a different world. A well-built igloo could maintain an interior temperature of up to 60 degrees near the sleeping platform, even when the outside world was plummeting to 30 degrees or lower. That's a 90-degree difference, cozier than some budget motels I've stayed in. How is this possible? The answer lies in a combination of nature's physics and human ingenuity. First, snow is an incredible insulator. Those tiny air pockets, trapped within packed snow, act like a natural barrier, slowing the escape of heat. It's like wrapping your house in a giant frozen quilt. Second, humans are walking heaters. Each person gives off about 300 BTUs of heat per hour just by existing, more if you're moving around or nervously wondering if a polar bear is nearby. In a small igloo with a few occupants, that body heat adds up fast, turning the space into a snug little oasis. Then there were the oil lamps called kudlik in Inuktitut. These weren't just for ambiance, though they probably cast a warm, flickering glow that could make any Arctic night feel a bit less lonely. Fueled by seal or whale oil, kudlik provided light and a steady source of heat, enough to raise the temperature significantly. Think of them as the Arctic equivalent of a space heater, except instead of running up your electric bill, they ran on resources the Inuit already had. The smell? Well, let's just say eau de seal oil wasn't exactly a bestseller at the perfume counter, but it got the job done. The design of the igloo amplified these heat sources. The entrance tunnel was a stroke of genius, a low, downward-sloping passage that dipped before rising into the main chamber. This created a cold trap, where heavier, frigid air would sink and stay, unable to invade the warmer living space. The sleeping platform was built higher up, where the warmest air naturally collected. It's the same principle we use in modern homes when we crank the thermostat and fight over who gets the spot closest to the heater. Except here, the Inuit had figured it out centuries ago. No thermostat required. Ventilation was just as critical. You might think a house made of snow would be airtight, but that's a recipe for trouble when you've got people breathing and lamps burning. The Inuit understood the risks of carbon monoxide long before it had a name, and they solved it with elegant simplicity. A small hole near the dome's peak about the size of your thumb. This vent let fresh oxygen flow in while allowing smoke and carbon dioxide to escape. It was the world's first HVAC system. No ducts, no filters, just a hole and a prayer for calm winds. In extreme cold, these vents could form delicate ice crystals as warm, moist air from inside met the freezing outside. These weren't just pretty. They were a built-in air quality monitor. If the crystals vanished, the hole was blocked, and it was time to grab a stick and clear it. The vent also managed moisture, a big deal when every breath you exhale adds water vapor to the air. Without it, the igloo's walls could turn into a dripping mess, like waking up to find your ceiling has sprung a leak, except your ceiling is made of frozen water. Speaking of those walls, here's where igloos pull off. Another trick, they actually got stronger over time. Most buildings weaken with age. Wood rots, concrete cracks, and my apartment's drywall seems to invent new holes every year. But igloos? They laughed in the face of physics. When first built, an igloo was a collection of snow blocks, carefully arranged but still a bit fragile at the seams. Once people moved in, though, the interior warmed up from body heat and lamps, causing the inner surface to melt just a tiny bit. Not enough to collapse, just enough to glaze over. At night, when the lamps were out and the air cooled, That thin layer of moisture would refreeze, forming a smooth, continuous sheet of ice across the interior. Day after day, this freeze-thaw cycle turned the igloo from a stack of blocks into a solid, ice-reinforced shell. After a few days, it could be so strong that a grown adult could stand on top without it budging. Modern tests have shown these fortified igloos can hold over 2,000 pounds, roughly the weight of a small car. Try that with your suburban garage roof, and you'll be calling your insurance agent before lunch. This strength wasn't just a cool party trick. It meant igloos could withstand the Arctic's worst tantrums. Blizzards with winds over 50 miles per hour, heavy snowfalls that would bury lesser structures. Snowdrifts piling against the sides didn't weaken the igloo. They added insulation, like nature accidentally upgrading your house while trying to destroy it. Hunters could even store gear on top, safe from curious foxes or other scavengers. And in a pinch, during a storm, you could cram extra people inside without worrying about the roof caving in. Speaking of roofs, igloos were surprisingly wildlife-proof. Picture a polar bear, all 1,000 pounds of it, slipping and sliding across the dome like a furry skateboarder. It's a hilarious image, but it's also a testament to the igloo's design. The curved shape distributed weight evenly, so even a hefty bear wasn't likely to crash through. Sure, a determined bear could dig its way in. Those claws aren't, just for show, but most had better things to do, like hunting seals or posing for soda ads. Some Inuit would test their igloos by standing on top themselves, a nerve-wracking but effective way to ensure the structure could handle whatever the Arctic threw at it. The dome's shape wasn't just about strength, it was a masterclass in efficiency. Builders started at the ground, laying each block at a slight inward angle, spiraling upward until the dome closed at the top. This eliminated the need for temporary supports, something modern architects rely on for domes today. It's like building a stone arch without a scaffold, except your stones are snow, and your workplace is a wind-whipped tundra. Inside, the spiral design helped warm air circulate, rising along the curves to keep the space evenly heated. It was nature's central heating, no pipes or rattling radiators required. Every detail of an igloo had a purpose. The snow itself was carefully chosen. Not the powdery stuff you'd use for a snowman, but dense, wind-compacted snow that could be cut into clean, sturdy blocks. Builders would listen for the right texture, almost like sommeliers sampling wine, except instead of a fruity bouquet, they were after a firm, reliable crunch. The knives they used, often made from caribou antler, walrus ivory, or whalebone, were honed to perfection, slicing blocks with the precision of a chef filleting fish. Each block was sized just right, about 2 feet by 1.5 feet by 8 inches. Measurements learned through centuries of trial and error, not a ruler in sight. Beyond survival, igloos could be surprisingly homey. Basic hunting shelters were Spartan, but when time allowed, Inuit builders added touches of comfort. Caribou hides lined the walls and floors, providing insulation and a softer place to sit. Snow benches, carved along the interior, were piled with furs to create cozy, seating or sleeping areas. In some regions, builders crafted windows from thin sheets of freshwater ice or even seal intestine, letting in a soft, diffused light that turned the interior into a glowing sanctuary. It was Arctic interior decorating at its finest, minimalist, chic before it was a trend. For special occasions, igloos became more than just shelters. Large communal structures, called kargi, were built for gatherings, feasts, or ceremonies. These could span up to 20 feet across, big enough for dancing, storytelling, or community meetings. Some were adorned with snow sculptures or lit by ice, lanterns turning them into Arctic event venues. Imagine hosting a wedding reception in a snow dome. No catering fees, but you'd better hope the guests bring their own mittens. Comfort wasn't just a luxury in these spaces, it was a matter of survival. When the outside world is trying to freeze you solid, a warm, dry place to rest can mean the difference between life and death. The Inuit understood this, and their igloos reflected a deep respect for their environment. They didn't fight the Arctic's harshness. They worked with it, turning snow from a threat into an ally. Igloos aren't just relics of the past. They're still relevant today. In places like Nunavut, Canada, schools teach students how to build them. preserving cultural knowledge while equipping them with skills that could save lives. Military units and search and rescue teams in Arctic regions study igloo construction, knowing that when modern gear fails, a snow shelter can be a lifeline. Researchers in polar regions sometimes use igloos as field bases, quiet, eco-friendly, and free of utility bills. Even tourists are getting in on the action, joining workshops to build their own igloos, though most are happy to retreat to a heated lodge afterward. What makes the igloo endure is its simplicity and adaptability. In a world obsessed with high-tech solutions, there's something humbling about a structure that requires only snow, skill, and a sharp blade. It's a reminder that sometimes the best answers are the oldest ones. The igloo didn't just shelter the Inuit. It showcased their ability to thrive where others might falter. It's a monument to human resilience, proof that even in the harshest places, creativity can carve out a warm corner to call home. So the next time you see a flurry of snowflakes, don't just think of shoveling your driveway. Think of the igloo, a structure that took the Arctic's greatest challenge and turned it into a masterpiece. It's not just a pile of snow. It's a lesson in survival, a work of art, and a story